hang about, my microphone's all wonkety. Oh, and Jeff's in a dick mood. He's just come back from a quick walk, and he's like, "Should we have a play? Should we chase around the front room?" And he's got his like. Can you hear his squeaker?
He's got his squeaky toy.
Man alive, that is not gonna. It's not gonna translate.
It's not. It's. It might cause some editing.
Jeff, I need you to give me that. Okay, thank you. That's for me. No, that's all gone. All gone.
What's Jeff's object permanence? His sense of object permanence like?
Unfortunately, incredibly good. So he knows where things are put, and so he's got another squeaky toy that about a month ago I put into a cupboard, and every now and then he just walks to the cupboard and stares. Oh. Yeah.
And it's the only thing in there. It's not like
and the Hoover. So it's hidden with the Hoover because I tried to put it somewhere where he wouldn't be distracted. Now he's just sitting next to me, staring up at where I've put it on the shelf.
Oh. Well, if we hit a rocky patch while recording, you can just pull it out. The squeaky toy, that is.
This is a family show, Simon.
Keep
your
glad
mouse in the house.
I'm so glad that you'll be able to edit that out.
But you know I won't. This is a podcast in which two friends have serious conversations about silly things and silly conversations about serious things.
I'm Simon Ellis.
And I'm Lee Miller.
Welcome to Midlifing.
How you doing?
Good. I had a text message from my sister during the week. She's been trained as a macroeconomist. Just 5 words, this text.
Yeah.
Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae.
That was it. We were just like, Fanny Manny, Freddie Meddy. No.
It did make me think that I was just thinking, as I said, macroeconomist, that if someone said, "Oh, what's a macroeconomist?" I know that a large percentage of our unfaithful listeners are macroeconomists, or indeed economists of some kind, and I just hate to think the anti-fan mail we're going to be receiving from them when we even dare to get even vaguely close to their expertise.
Well, I think we've outed ourselves as inexpert at most things, and the things that we are experts in, we will never speak of.
Yeah, which, it's interesting, isn't it, why it is that someone would listen to...
I feel that I need to apologise to our unfaithful listeners, because a couple of weeks ago we had a little conversation about Armie Hammer and the potential for cancelling and kink-shaming that emerged. Do you remember the conversation?
Oh, how could I forget?
Okay, good. I was just checking.
I've never felt thirsty in the same way ever since.
Yes, but it would appear that more and more revelations have become public, and it would appear that he's a little predatory. And so there I was saying, let's not kink-shame someone, but I think we should probably hold people to account for their inappropriate behaviour. So just like a little...
Is that happening in the public court of Twitter?
His personal publicist and his agent have dropped him.
Right.
It's the same week that Marilyn Manson has been... Accusations against him have re-emerged as a result of a statement made by, I think it was his ex-partner, Evan Rachel Wood, who you will know, of course, from Westworld.
I'm not very good at remembering the names of actors.
She's the smiley girl from the beginning, who turns out not to be so smiley.
Oh, yes. That's the actor.
That's the actor, yeah.
The smiley one from the beginning who turns out to be not so smiley. You should write précis for TV shows. I think you would excel. You would become an expert at such a thing.
Smiley farmer's daughter turns out not to be a farmer's daughter or smiley. She's a robot. There we go. Spoilers. But anyway, so I just thought, I should plant my flag in the land of apology.
Your flag in the land of apology.
I'm claiming the whole of apology as my territory. I'm just going to live there. I mean, I know that technically it's where you live, but...
I'll tell you what, the weather's shit here too. There's always storm clouds overhead, let me tell you. Yeah, plant your flag in apology land.
Doing it. Done it. Didn't I?
Nice.
It's mine. So, how's your week been?
My week's been all right. Yeah, I mean, hard to talk about my week without talking about work.
Yeah, I'm kind of at that point in lockdown 3.0 where it's like, I don't really know how to tell you in an entertaining way that I had another bath. Because that's been the high point of my day.
Well, I had a shower.
Oh.
I think it was Tuesday. It was Tuesday. It was Tuesday. And it was, I had a shave as well. I'm going to try and do that this weekend.
Have a shower and a shave?
Yeah, I might have a
One
run.
more and you've got
I might
the
go for a
triumvirate.
run, which means that I'll get sweaty and then feel
Yeah.
like I have to have a shower. You know, this is
Right.
old. This is old news.
Yeah.
We had an idea that we might tend to some responses from people.
Yeah, we did, because we talk about our unfaithful listeners. And I think over Christmas we had a little response to a couple of our unfaithful listeners' questions. But we've had a little bit of a backlog, haven't we? Because there have been some emails that have come into us.
I didn't actually check with this person whether I could share their worst bit of feedback. I'm going to say it anyway. I'm just not say their name. They know who they are. The worst bit of feedback I got. This is in response to the show where we talked about the nature of feedback. Worst bit of feedback I got was when I was in my early 20s trying to carve a career. I love that, in corporate health and farm communications, meaning pharmaceutical communications.
Oh, okay, like PH Farm. Gotcha.
Exactly. In my appraisal, they told me my writing lacked creative flair. It cut deep. I hated working there. I left soon after, and I found my creative mojo elsewhere. Thanks for the reminder.
How many times do we find ourselves in an environment or in a context where somebody tells us that we're not meeting what they need?
We lack.
Yeah, exactly. But do they ever say, what are we doing that is stifling your potential? What could we be doing better to make you reach your potential? Because we employed you, so we assume that we must have liked you at some point.
And also, we've assumed responsibility for you.
Yeah. You know, what do you need from us? When was the last time you were asked that in a work context? What do we need? What do you need? What do you need from us?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay, right.
Yeah, I just wanted you to record the sound of crickets again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd never have I been, gee, I hope my boss is not listening. I've never been asked that.
I think it's part of the sort of the systems in which we work, where we become so, product orientated. And product there, I mean, basically output. Product can mean whatever you want it to mean there, can't it? The thing that you are there to do or make or sell or whatever. But we become so focused on that bit. Don't get me started on capitalism and neo-Fordist blah 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 blah, because it just makes me cross. I'm over billionaires this week. I'm really super over.
You mean differently from last week?
I said I was trying to meet the world with curiosity and not judgment.
Turns out unforgettable. It's hard, is it?
But it turns out that I might not be able to meet billionaires with any curiosity.
Oh, which one are you talking about? Bezos?
Well, Bezos has been in the news. Tesla fuckwit has been in the news. Battery dude.
I know him, Mr. M.
Yeah, well, I think it's a great name. Whenever I see him, I do think about the anal glands of a deer. Oh, see, that's a Perfumia joke. That would kill it in a perfume context.
In a perfume podcast. Maybe you should go and speak on the perfume podcast.
Well, I would do if someone invited me, but I'm not like you, getting invited to talk at embodiment podcasts.
Yeah,
Nobody asks me to go anywhere, because apparently I'm not expert in anything.
It's got to hurt a little bit. So billionaires, they've slipped through the net for you in terms of curiosity.
Yeah, I just keep encountering people struggling in a variety of ways, through various media sources, and just thinking, and there's somebody over there, one person, who's sitting on more money than a country needs. I'm not sure what's the purpose of it to be that rich.
I don't want to be the Giuliani defense lawyer for a billionaire. But it's a lot more complicated than that, isn't it, though?
We're looking at people who could make a decision to go, how much money do I need to live? How much money do I need to live like a king? How much money do I need to live like an emperor? Okay, still got shitloads in the bank. Maybe I'll give it away. We've rehearsed this before. I kind of just find myself,
There's a lot of taking going on. I want to talk about externalities here, but then again, I'm worried about our several economist listeners who would be just going, Simon, don't talk about externalities, please, please, don't talk about it.
But maybe it's okay for me to unveil my my ignorance in this context and just like sound like the everyman that I am. And go, I'm so angry about billionaires. And maybe an economist can write us an email and explain why I'm wrong. And this is important to global culture. And then I'll be able to settle with it, because all I do at the moment is just go, oh, I don't get it. It's just unfair.
Yeah, talking about massive global inequality on a massive scale, financial inequality, extraordinary. But it is a humongous problem, and I mean from the perspective of not only the scale of it, but also the complexity of it. It's not just about rather banal idea of redistribution of wealth. Yes, on the surface, but it's limited by understanding. Oh, thank God.
Similarly, I find myself going, oh, I probably should try and educate myself about this in order to understand what's making me so upset.
But that's why also we have economists, though. I mean, that's why we have those people.
I just find myself I get so weary. I get
weary.
It's like I can't, I'm going to sound very current in the use of my language now, but I just think that the emotional labour that requires for me to try and understand something, it weighs me down in a way that I go, oh, well, I might understand it, but then I probably still won't be able to do anything about it. And that will just feel like shit. So do I want to do that work? Because it's tricky.
I actually was listening to something this morning, and a guy who speaks on Radio 4, his name's Tim Harford. He's good with numbers, and he was, I think this is related, he was quoting someone on Twitter, a German journalist who writes about data, but particularly has been writing enormous amounts about COVID-19. His name's Kai Kupferschmidt, which is an awesome name. His perspective is that it's important not to teach people to distrust what they read and critically appraise their sources, but more like to teach people to distrust what they think and to critically appraise their own biases.
Oh, wow.
And it's interesting because I would say, well, both those things. But unless you're distrusting your own thoughts and really being critical of your own biases when you're reading things, when you're looking at things, then you're in a very dangerous position to then only read things that make you feel good. And when I say make you feel good, that sustain or support or nourish the things you believe about the world. And so I was just that situation where you, like, what would be the least you need to do, and what you're talking about in relation to global inequality? What would be the least you need to do in order to be informed enough? You know, that's pretty messy because you're not an economist.
It kind of reminds me of something I was reminded of earlier on in the week. Although it's also a bit of a steer. Have you heard of Ruma Godden? She was an author. She's probably most famous for writing the novel Black Narcissus. And Black Narcissus was then turned into a film by Powell and Pressburger, who were famous for The Red Shoes, you know, the ballet dancing film.
Wow.
And they were also, I think they had their career ruined when they made a film in 1959. It might have been Michael Powell who made the film. I don't think they worked on this together. I'd have to check. But Michael Powell made a film called Peeping Tom. It was kind of the British equivalent of Psycho, but it was a lot more graphic in the sense that there wasn't the big twist, there wasn't the reveal, it wasn't the nice guy next door, it was this sadomasochistic voyeur who was the centre of the narrative. It was considered to be sordid and sleazy, and maybe if it had come out the year after Psycho rather than the year before, it would have been seen as a critical masterpiece. Who knows?
Wow,
but
he got cancelled.
Yeah, he got cancelled, but he was famous for making a film. It's just been remade as a BBC TV show, but I've not watched it.
Hang on, what's been remade?
Black Narcissus. I'll try and circle back to the thing that it reminded me of.
Yes.
That sense that, you know, you have to distrust yourself. Ruma Godden is the name of the woman who wrote the novel Black Narcissus. As well as being a novelist, she was quite famous for writing her memoirs. And one of I think it's the second of her memoirs, is called A House with Four Rooms. And the house with four rooms is the self. And she talks about the idea that we have four rooms in us, and I'm trying to remember what the rooms are. It's like emotion and thought, spirituality and physical.
Wow.
So there's I think is that right? Emotion, your thought landscape, your emotional. I've said emotional.
Just to be clear,
your
you're
physical
asking
landscape.
yourself that question. Is that right? Because I don't have the faintest.
Yeah,
clue.
no. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember them because it's a long time since I read her work. But yeah, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And she says that we all have these 4 rooms in our house, in ourself, but we have a tendency to live in one room. And her thesis, if you will, is that what you need to do is you need to go into the other rooms at least once a day, even if it's only to air them out.
Do a bit of vacuuming.
Yeah, just like open the windows, let some light in, because otherwise you stop being a person. And I think that idea of challenging your biases, it's visiting those other rooms, isn't it? It's reminding yourself of the complexity that you hold. Mm. And that you don't just get into that comfort of like, I'll limit you for a second. I'll reduce you because this isn't true of you. But you live in your physical room all the time. That's all you are. That's not the case at all. But we've talked about historically. Your sense of drive and your sense of being.
You're calling me a jock. Thanks.
No, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
But
I am.
No, yeah. What I'm trying to say is not that you're a jock, but in the Roomagodden principle, you live in that one room. That's not true. We understand that. You're much more balanced. You do go into those other rooms. But the sense that we probably do have a room that we're more comfortable in.
I like that because I don't know how we got here.
Because we were asking, were you ever encouraged? Did the place that was giving her the negative feedback say, what can we do? But we get into a relationship with our places of work.
Which are single rooms.
Yeah, exactly that. It's like, you have been brought here to do this thing, so do that thing. But actually, if we were to visit those other rooms with you, or work out how you can get access to those other rooms, maybe you'd be better at the thing that we've got you here for.
Yeah, this guy, Tim Harford, it was quite good actually, because you were saying when you hear a piece of information or when you hear something, it doesn't matter what it is, that he was encouraging people listening to say to themselves, how do I feel when I hear that? And he said, not for a long time, but just notice how you feel. And what he meant, or what I understood him to mean, was that, say when you read a bit of information and you feel happy, or you feel content. And the contentedness isn't necessarily about the information itself, but it's about your relationship to it. And that by questioning your relationship to that information, it sheds light on the information itself. It tells you things that aren't in that information, but are about how you're registering it and how you're absorbing it, or how your single room is contextualizing, if you like, that bit of information or that idea. And I like that idea because it's kind of like it's like a little thing that's just poking into you, right? And so listening to that poking as opposed to ignoring the poking. Like, what is this? What is this? Is actually, what's my relationship to this thing I'm hearing?
Yeah, it's so aligns with, I'm sure, what we have both done over the course of I'm the one who's now talking about work, so I lose the merit points today. But it's so close to the stuff that
they're adding up, man. They're adding up.
We do this all the time with undergraduates, don't we? Because we're constantly interrogating their taste formation. So that idea of encountering your discomfort is really what we, I think.
Oh, gee, it's funny because we had this actually, I think this is a good time to introduce a little bit of feedback from an unfaithful listener whose name is Ian Edmund. He said this: You sound like you welcome feedback on it. This is the same episode that you quoted, that one should only give feedback on what is there, not on what wasn't. And then he said, in this vein, the only feedback is, how do you expect people to give you any feedback in a situation where you two are doing something that you are doing? It just is. If one is only to provide feedback on what is there, and what is there in the podcast is what you want to be there, and it is your podcast, then anything we did say would really just be our own feelings about it, which shouldn't matter to you because it's nothing you can control. Bit of Stoic philosophy there. It's like giving feedback on a painting. One can have an opinion about it, but any feedback says more about the person giving the feedback than the painting. The painting is the way it is because that's what the artist did. The podcast, much like the painting, is perfect because it exists. And I really like this because it sort of, to me, is a challenge to what we were talking about. And I think it's a little bit of a challenge to what you've just been describing then, which is, you can talk about what's there, right? But even the things you're noticing reveal something about your taste as the viewer. It's not the whole truth, if you like, when we're talking about that idea of in feedback responding to what's there, because I'm missing all the things that don't occur to me in a way because of my taste, and also the implicit taste, or you might say that I'm trying to, whether I like it or not, that I am imposing on people that I'm working with. It's messy, isn't it? I certainly remember with students I was working with, I'd write a list. Any of them who might be listening to this, they'd be laughing because they would just get these long lists after I'd watched a rehearsal of theirs. And the idea of the list was to be writing things that I'd noticed that we would be able to agree happened, and that anything that we couldn't agree on slipped into opinion. And those opinions may or may not have been useful, but we wanted to be really clear, because my job, I certainly did not see my job for them to make work more like work that I made. When I say work, I mean artistic work that I would make or that I would want to make. If that's what was going on, they were getting something closer and closer to what I liked. There was something fundamentally flawed about that education. Because what's key, and floats straight back to your curiosity thing, is how is my role to develop this person's curiosity, and what is it that I say that gets in the way of that development, and what is that I say that helps and supports and nourishes that development? And those are very complex questions.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of have nothing to say to that in a really good way, because I just want to sit with it, which isn't great for a podcast, admittedly.
No, I think it's really important that we don't feel like we're always that we have something to add.
Yeah. No, I think Ian's observation is really interesting and really beautiful. But at the same time, we are both in regular conversations with people, and effectively it is our job to provide feedback on the things
they're doing,
that they are doing, and which is, I think, ultimately why giving feedback on the things that are there is really all I can do, rather than saying, why didn't you do this?
Yes, and I don't think you're doing this, but to imagine that those somehow are neutral observations.
No, absolutely.
So how is it? What is it that we? How is it that we create the context by which they, meaning those people, might come to understand the lack of neutrality in our observations?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, no, I'm definitely not assuming that saying this is what I see is neutral, because it's what I see, and I can't shuck off who I am, what I like, what I don't like.
Well, you're an expert in it too. Why would you want to do that?
Yeah. But still, it's absolutely. But that idea of neutrality is impossible, isn't it?
Oh.
It's lovely. That's lovely.
Should we go to something else?
Yeah, let's.
Oh, this is Karen Wood. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Karen. What would you like to have either have done or do more of when thinking about where you are now? What matters to you both? It's a big question, isn't it?
It's a big question, but it's also a little question as well. People.
You'd like to have done more people?
Yeah. Yeah. No, people matter to me.
Yeah.
That's what matters to me now. People. People I know, people I don't know. People being okay in the world. Right now, that's what matters to me. I don't want to do anything differently. I wouldn't go back and change a single thing.
Yeah. It sounds like I'm just trying to finish off the episode, but I really love that answer. It's so beautiful. And how is it that we express that care or that concern for people? I just love it. I really love it.
I've got a new jumper, which I haven't taken off since it arrived.
Yeah, that's the thing with new clothes, isn't it?
I just love them. I love them when they're new. I love them when they're
old. This is a sweatshirt, isn't it? It's not a jumper.
It's a sweatshirt. No, you're right. It's a sweatshirt from a company called Good Measure. They're British-based, and they produce limited-run
cultural products
in Manchester. Not cultural products, in this particular instance, sweatshirty products. Very warm, heavy weight, and I am constantly now sweating. It lives up to the name of its product. It's a sweatshirt, and it makes
as opposed to where it was made. You mean?
Yeah, it's definitely not one of those.
Yeah, I don't have any such things to report.
I would like to say the reason I've got a new sweatshirt is because the other grey sweatshirt I own that was bought from Finisterre 10 years ago has now holes in it on both arms and armpits and neck. And I can't continue to stitch it and still look moderately professional in the world.
Yeah, moderately professional. That's quite an interesting line, that one, isn't it? I always wonder about what immoderately professional looks like, and clearly Holes is something like that. Although, you know, in these days, working through a screen, it's amazing the number of holes you can hide. There's only a very small part of my body needs to look moderately professional.
Yeah, basically from the nipple up. Am I right?
Why did you just say one nipple?
Because I was thinking about nipples there as a concept.
Like nipple line.
So the nipple
line.
as in, kind of conceptually the nipple rather than actually the nipple. But now I'm thinking of both of your nipples.
Yes, I love that conceptual nipple thinking.
Hey, do you just have the two nipples, or are you secret? Are you a secret witch? You're a secret witch, aren't you?
No. I'm not going to be a secret witch for much longer, though, am I? Yes, I do. I am one of the. You knew this, though, you bastard. I know. You this entire conversation, you've been leaning. You've been basically. It's on this trajectory towards this revelation, isn't it? From the very from the moment you started this fucking call, you went, "I'm going to get Simon to talk about his extra nipple."